Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and today I want to make a short little video just highlighting something in my collection that I thought was worth talking about, but also I want to know what you guys think about this particular handle material. Today we're going to be talking about micarta, and now I understand that micarta may be a specific manufactured item by a specific company, but for all intensive purposes and to keep things nice and simple, we're just going to call it micarta. I know it is a fabric stabilized material of sorts, but there are different grades of it, different qualities, different cuts. Could be made out of thicker or denser fabrics and machined of different qualities, right? We have something ranging from, super cheap to something that is still within the budget realm. I have experienced some premium knives that have micarta, and realistically, micarta doesn't really get much fancier than just being a high polish material. The polish can, in fact, wear off over time, but realistically, this is the most common state in which you will find micarta. It is a visually powdery and kind of dull looking material that has some grip to it. When introduced to excess moisture, it does allow for a little bit more grip in a way, but one thing to consider when it comes to this material is that if it can absorb anything, if anything is a porous material, that means that it could also absorb germs and other things like that, unwanted substances, which I think is really important to consider when shopping for knives, because maybe you see a new, let's say, kitchen utility folder of sorts, of different, or from a different brand, doesn't matter which one, I'm not trying to single anybody out, but I think micarta is the worst possible material to use for something like that. So it's something you need to consider when it comes to shopping around and looking at the different variations. When it comes to budget knives, which all of these I would very much consider to be budget knives, this guy's like 20, this is just under 50, this one maybe around $50, this guy around 42, I believe. So everything here is extremely inexpensive, very cheap and affordable realistically, for what you're getting. And these are wonderful examples of budget knives. We'll go through the models in just a sec, from newest to old, which one's been used the most, what's been done to what, if anything, if any modifications have taken place, of course. But that's something that I've been noticing within this year. I've noticed that there are some designs that don't really make sense to use certain scale or handle material. I've also seen other things like essentially acrylic or just plastic in a way, and we all know the good tried and true FRN. That's good stuff. There are plenty of American based companies that use that, Spyderco being a huge one. I have two wonderful examples of FRN knives from Spyderco, and these things can really take a beating. Now, while they are very lightweight and cheap feeling in hand, the utility for weight is undeniable throughout the community. Here we have Manix 2 lightweight and the Elite Native 5 right here. So again, these are plastic in a sense, right? But they're non-porous without heat, the way that you can essentially dye or give a certain look to the scales. These used to be white. These were the GP knives exclusive one right here. It was recently dropped earlier this year. And then this was just a different shade of teal that I also have made a little bit darker, a little bit richer, visually speaking, with some darker teal color. You have to essentially boil the scales to open up and for it to become a porous material. G10, you can do the same thing as well. So arguably, almost all of these materials are porous. Carbon fiber is essentially a porous material too, but I don't see anybody dyeing their carbon fiber. I don't even know if it's possible, honestly. If you guys know of anybody that's able to alter the tone of carbon fiber without sanding or polishing, let me know, because I would definitely like to be able to educate myself more about that. Titanium is another thing that you will frequently see on high-end and low-end budget knives. This is like a $30 budget titanium knife. It's freaking awesome. The Micarta knives Assault Team Model 1 with some customization. Yes, at $35-40, this is a full titanium frame lock knife, and it's actually pretty darn nice. I like it. You can anodize it, you can do different colors. It is non-porous, but through the process of anodization, you can change the color, which is pretty sweet. Other things like this guy right here, this is a Chavez scapegoat produced by Riot Knives, a incredible high-end Chinese production company, or OEM, I guess to call it. This is typically what it looks like, just plain and simple, nothing really interesting going on until you add a little bit of color, maybe some texture, milling, things like that. Some come with it already, some don't. But micarta is one of those things that I think it's a little silly to see when it's implemented on multi-hundred or even $1,000 knives, because it's honestly a really, really cheap and inexpensive material. At a certain point, these can absorb so much moisture or oils that they may become a little bit more flexible, and structurally speaking could possibly be compromised. Now, I do not know of anybody who has done, I guess, water stability of micarta scales. I think that would be an interesting destruction test video. I personally don't have anything at the moment that I would be willing to do that with, but if any custom makers out there that see this, or maybe you as another individual in this wonderful community have a piece of micarta that you're willing to sacrifice and see what happens to it if you leave it in water or a oil solution for excessive amounts of time, what happens to that stuff? Does it absorb it? Does it actually weigh more? Can someone take like a dry weight and then maybe a week later of excess exposure or soaking, does it weigh more? If so, does that compromise the fiber structure of the material that is supposed to be stabilized? So it's a stable material, stable enough to mill and create contouring, like these, for example. Both these wonderful little budget knives, they are fully contoured and actually very well rounded off, very comfortable in hand. It is rigid enough to make very consistent and clean jimps, which is very nice. That's a good example of it. Also on this one right here, you could see that this is half titanium, half micarta, and the jimping lines up with the jimping on the spine of the blade as well. So that's nice and crisp, feels nice and good. Still soft in comparison to the titanium. There's a clear difference in how these two feel. Definitely, there's a warmth, there's a richness to it, absolutely. I guess we could talk about the models here. So this guy right here, this is the, I can't pronounce the name of that brand, X-Touch, X-Touch, or whatever we want to pronounce it. These have little G10 inlays surrounding the pivot, just cause, I guess. But this is a good cut of black micarta. It's very rich. I haven't carried it a whole lot, but you could see that in even this, I guess my lighting here, my living room, you could see that down over here, it's a little bit richer, and over here, it's a little bit lighter. That's because when this knife is within my hand, I get a pretty good grip on this little guy right here, and a lot of my hand naturally contacts majority of this over here and kind of leaving this a little exposed. Eventually, it'll kind of fade together and become a little bit more cohesive, right, in the richness overall. This is the Vosteed Knives Acorn. It has some skiff bearings, which it didn't really need it, but I had the size available, so I just said, why the hell not? So yeah, the only modification this thing has is skiffs, I guess, if you want to call that a modification, but it's not technically stock in a way. This is a wonderful little knife, and Vosteed, I'm still waiting, guys. It would be pretty sweet to see a Acorn Plus, or a Acorn Large or XL, whatever you want to call it, because this seems like a wonderful platform that, while it did really well in this regular size, it's already a small knife. And Vosteed went ahead and made a mini, but not a plus. Kind of odd. And what's even stranger is that you guys will almost never hear me advocating for larger knives because it's just not my thing. I like smaller, more compact knives, and that's why this thing has found its way into the pocket a lot. And you can see clearly by the richness of the scales, I haven't put any sort of oil on these. This is all just from natural use. Now, every once in a while, I will wipe it off to get any sort of heavier dirt or debris, dust, and buildup off of it. But a lot of the natural oils are very deeply embedded into this, and you can see the space that's milled out there to accommodate for the clip being switched to the other side if you are lefty. It's cool that they allow for that on such a small model here, and a very inexpensive model as well. But you could see that even under the clip, that it is very light in comparison to the surrounding material here. And it's a wonderful feeling. It feels really good. Now everybody's oils and whatever you use can give a slightly different tone or sheen. If you go heavy on oils, just be careful because it can leak into your pant lining. I have heard of people having micarta knives and then putting them into dress pants and then leaving slight oil stains. That is a possibility for that to transfer over. I personally haven't really experienced it, but I think it's worth mentioning. Also, I think this is a good one to talk about the different grades of micarta. This is a recent pickup that I got. This is an older model. I believe it came out last year or so. This is the Kaiser Knives Coniferous V, a Justin Gingrich design. It's a pretty interesting knife. You don't see this mix too often, where it's half titanium, inset steel liner, and micarta show side. Pretty interesting. You can also flip the clip if you want, because this has a steel liner that's adding structural rigidity to the micarta itself. It's very well milled to accommodate that steel liner, which is nice. But this isn't really a mix that you see all too often, where it's half and half. And it feels odd in hand because I don't have anything else in my collection that's like this, but I think it's something that's worth checking out. Or maybe there are other models that have a similar vibe to it or constructed in a similar fashion. And it's interesting, it really is, because typically when you have something that weighs as much as this, you think it's going to be a full metal bodied construction, whether that be aluminum, titanium, or even steel. Steel obviously is going to weigh the most, and aluminum the lightest. Titanium is perfection through and through. That's just really a personal preference, but it would be in the middle weight wise, at least. But you could see that the fiber structure is it's a little funny looking. Maybe it was just how it was milled or machined, but it does look like something that is a little bit more inexpensive. And realistically, I'm not the biggest fan of the cut of micarta that is used here. No, sorry, my dog's like right next to me drinking water. If you hear that. You done? You're done? Okay, cool. She's done. All right. So she comes from like all the way to the other side of the house just to get like 3 licks of water and then walks away. Let me know if your guys' animals do that too, if you guys record anything. But this one right here, this rather large, lengthy knife, I actually just finished putting in some thick skiffs, some thick washer skiffs in here. I've owned this knife before in the past, and I ran it with skiff thick washers and also the cage bearings as well. It's an incredible, incredible platform that welcomes both pivot systems, which it's fun. It really is fun because this is a lot of knife for the money. I did just unbox this, and I basically was just rambling on about how great it is. But this is fresh black micarta, like right out of the packaging. There was a little bit of oil from the factory, so it wasn't bone dry. And you can see that there is the tiniest little fuzzies here and there, closer to corners that would be a little bit harder to knock off when it comes to, in comparison to like a rigid material like a metal, titanium, aluminum, or steel. But you can't really get as clean of a cut with this material because it's very fibrous. There's another variation of micarta as well. There's linen, which is very, very fine. Visually speaking, the structure of it is very, very fine. And then the opposite, which would be burlap micarta. And I am most definitely not a fan of burlap micarta. It looks kind of gross in my opinion. Some people may like it, of course, but it still has all the same properties. It can absorb things. It is relatively easy to machine and be relatively consistent. But again, so this is kind of what it looks like, just a little dry. Eventually it'll become like this, and I think this is a good side-to-side comparison of what it'll eventually look like. The grain structure looks damn near exactly the same as if Vosteed and Senka are getting their material for their scales from the exact same supplier. Potentially I wouldn't know that, and realistically it doesn't matter. But from what I could see from a consumer's perspective, this stuff is pretty darn freaking close. So I can definitely say that I'm excited to use this one a lot, and hopefully it'll look like this in no time, looking nice and rich and velvety, visually speaking. But yeah, so also with the thick washers, it's gonna take a second to break in, definitely. This is probably gonna be something that I'm just gonna slow roll for the most part, but it is very, very smooth already and quite well centered as well. So there is minimal side-to-side play, even having fresh washers in there. So yeah, that's really about it. Just wanted to give a little spiel on what I think of micarta. I think it's awesome. Realistically, it should stay at a certain price point, and maybe just it kind of rubs me the wrong way sometimes when I see manufacturers that have like a micarta inlay and charge like an extra $50 to $75 for a bolster or reverse bolster of micarta or an inlay of micarta. I understand that it takes time to machine and make sure that these parts meet up together as seamlessly as possible, which of course is the goal from a manufacturer and from a design perspective as well. But it just kind of rubs me the wrong way because micarta is a very cheap and inexpensive material to work with, and it is very, very commonly and very popularized within budget knives. And it's a great material. It is. Just know that it probably isn't the safest material if you're going to be using this for something like in the kitchen or for a camping trip and you're going to be processing meats, or if you are off like a boat knife or something like that where you're exposed to excess moisture and things like that. While a little bit of moisture in the moment is fine, it can absorb, and who knows at this point in time what happens to it. I don't know, and I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. What do you guys think about micarta? This is just a 20-minute video of some jackass talking about micarta. If you got to this point, let me know. Leave a thumbs up. And let me know what you guys think about micarta. I wanna hear your guys' thoughts on this. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you like colors? Do you like natural? Do you care for black at all? Let me know. Well, that's pretty much gonna be it today. If you guys like this video, go ahead and leave a like down below. If you are subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate all your support and your patience, of course. If you are not subscribed, please consider subscribing because I have plenty more videos and content coming your guys' way. And with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.